Hello everyone and welcome on in. Today I've got my Rapier Ice Gauntlet build for you guys, and it's been a long time since I've played Rapier Ice Gauntlet. Basically since launch was the last time that I played, and the game's changed a lot since then. There's been a lot of changes to how combat works. Things have become a lot more balanced. Roots aren't super OP anymore, but I still think Ice Gauntlet is really strong. It's a fantastic CC weapon. It's insanely tanky compared to some of your other options that you can pair with Rapier. And the combination of Rapier and Ice Gauntlet is not only a super high damage combo, but on top of it, it feels very durable. And this build does a great job fighting even against a lot of opponents when you're by yourself. Every single skill that I use in this build has excellent defensive utility, and it still hits like a truck. I mean, pairing Ice Gauntlet with anything that has an ice gem on the front bar just allows you to push some pretty crazy damage thanks to that last Ice Gauntlet passive. So I think this weapon combo is definitely really strong, and something that's really surprised me is the ability for this build to fight a ton of opponents, even in an open field situation, and just stay alive and put out that damage as well. I do have a written guide to this build on my website, pvpnewworld.com, if you guys want to see that. And of course, there's a bunch of gameplay at the end if you want to see the build in action. And without further ado, let's take a look at that build. To start off, Rapier Ice Gauntlet, I'm going for a dexterity and intelligence split with a focus on intelligence. Of course, I have 150 constitution. This is a pretty much melee fighting build for the most part, so I think the extra constitution helps a ton, especially if you're going to be playing solo and you're outnumbered. But if you want to go glacier, I'm sure that you could, or if you wanted to add more durability, you could do that too. And as for this split here, I have gone heavier in intelligence. The really important passive, especially for melee fighting in light armor, is that 150 dexterity for the 10 less stamina on dodge. As for the 200 intelligence, the 10 mana after a dodge passive is not super important for this build. We actually have really good sustain on the Ice Gauntlet, especially since I'm using Entomb, which doesn't cost any mana. Ice Spike is very cheap, and Ice Shower has a longer cooldown, so you shouldn't have sustain issues as long as you're using regen pots. So you don't really need the intelligence here. If you really wanted to focus more on Rapier damage, I would leave 150 in intel and then go for 200 in dex for the bonus backstab and headshot damage. That being said, the Ice Spike on this build can still hit pretty decently hard, so having more intelligence does help the Ice Spike be a better move for the build too. So it's really up to the user how you want to play it, and based on the skills that you choose. But we do have that 10% critical chance, the 10% critical damage, and kind of important, the 15% increase to elemental damage. Our weapon is a Rapier with the frozen gem on it, 50% of the damage converted to ice. This is a big deal not only for that 15% elemental damage here, but on top of it, we can take advantage of our Ice Gauntlet passives to have our Rapier bar hit even harder. So let's take a look at the gear I'm running on this build. Starting off with the weapons, the Rapier is Rogue with Sundering Riposte. I really like Sundering Riposte on the Rapier, especially with Rogue, because when you land that Riposte and go for the backstab, it does an insane amount of damage. In the intro clip, you guys saw that 5.5k backstab. This is the kind of Rapier that can do something like that. Moving on to the Ice Gauntlet, I've got Keen Speed and Keen with Deadly Frost. I think Keen Speed and Keen is a favorite of mine for a back bar, especially a ranged back bar. The Ice Gauntlet's not going to deal a ton of damage at a distance, but you can at least proc that Keen Speed with it to make it a little bit easier while you're fighting to be mobile. On top of it, the Ice Spike is a multi-hit move, so it has a much higher chance of critting and proccing Keen Speed, which works really nice too. Having Deadly Frost on the Ice Gauntlet here is kind of up to the user. I like it because it reduces the cooldown of Ice Shower, which is a very good move for PvP. But I would actually not mind having the same Gauntlet, but with Healing Tomb instead, for the additional heal that that provides. This build has an unexpected amount of healing power, so yeah, definitely something just to stack that a little bit further. For the gem on the Rapier, I am running Frozen, like I said earlier. This is a big deal because we can up the amount of ice damage we do when we hit an opponent with an ice skill. And when we swap to the Rapier, that will increase the amount of damage that the Frozen portion of our Rapier does. So this is the definitely preferred gem of choice for the front bar on this guy. And then on the Ice Gauntlet, I've gone with Gambit, 15% additional damage while your stamina is not full. That's going to be pretty often during the course of a fight. And the build I'm running on my Ice Gauntlet isn't super heavy on CC, so I think we're going to get a little bit more usage out of Gambit than trying to go for the increased damage when we have our opponent crowd controlled. And then taking a look at the gear, this is part of why we have so much healing power on this build. I have got pieces of shirking heels on. This is the PvP track reward gear, and I am running the helmet, the boots of it, and I would love to be running the chest as well. However, I've not received it as a drop through. But yeah, in light armor, we get a bonus to our healing power. We have divines on the necklace, so shirking heels goes a really long way in PvP. And then, of course, when you take a look at the pants here, I've got Healing Tomb, Resilient, and Shirking Energy. I really like Healing Tomb on this build. And Tomb is an insanely good skill. Not only will it heal you now, but you get to absorb incoming damage, which could help you survive something like incoming stuns and not get hit by the stun. When you break the Tomb, you do a little bit of damage, push opponents back, and you purge off all negative effects from yourself. Yeah, Tomb is a really, really good defensive skill, and Healing Tomb is really nice just to stack with all the other healing on this build. It makes us feel really bulky. And then, of course, Shirking Energy, a must-have for a light armor build. And then when I take a look at the gloves, I've got Omnidirectional Evade. I really liked Evade on the Rapier. I think it's one of Rapier's best skills. Omnidirectional Evade just gives you a little bit more power when you use Evade, so you can't go wrong with something like that. And then Physical Aversion. I do have Physical Aversion on my chest piece, which I would like to have another piece of the Shirking Heels Refreshing Resilient. But Physical Aversion is a great option as well. There's a lot of bows and muskets in PvP right now, or something like Shirking Fortification would be a good pairing for this kind of stuff too. And of course, you want to have full Resilient on your armor. I think this is a no-brainer for PvP. Critical hits deal a lot of damage. If you don't have the critical damage reduction, you'll get smacked really hard in PvP. And then taking a look at the jewelry, I've got Health Divine and Shirking Dot Cleanse. I actually am really liking Shirking Dot Cleanse. There's a ton of people that apply dots with bows and muskets at a distance. The Fire Staff Burning Dot. There are a lot of different dots in the game, especially the Spear Bleed that do a lot of damage. So the Shirking Dot Cleanse gives you a little bit more of resistance against that. This build actually has really good anti-condition with the Entomb and the Shirking Dot Cleanse. It's just part of what makes it more durable in PvP, not constantly having those effects ticking away at our health. And Health Divines, gotta have it for PvP. I think those are, if you don't have a gold piece of gear, the two perks that you definitely want to have. Moving on to the ring, I've got the Champion's Ring. This is a reward, again, from the PvP tracks. Hardy Keen Awareness are the two perks that you definitely want for PvP, and that Invigorated Punishment, allowing us to deal even more damage with our abilities based on how many bonuses our opponents have. This is basically the best in slot ring for this build, unless you can find a better perk than Invigorated Punishment that you like a little bit more. And then moving on to the earring, the two that you gotta have are Refreshing and Regenerating if you don't have a gold earring. Refreshing Toast, huge for that potion cooldown, and then Regeneration for that health over time. This is a big part of just feeling bulkier during a long-term fight in PvP. And then the bonus perk that we have here is Refreshing Evasion for a little bit more sustain on our abilities. This build rolls a lot, so Refreshing Evasion is a really good option for it, especially when mixed with the really long cooldowns from some of the Ice Gauntlet skills. And then when we take a look at the resists on this build, you can see that I'm running that kind of varied resist, focusing big time on thrust damage resistance, followed up a little bit by fire damage resistance, and then everything else coming in next. I think that there is a ton of projectiles in PvP, so thrust damage resistance is a no-brainer. On top of it, thrust is the most common damage type in this game that players have, so really good against a huge variety of opponents. And then fire damage resistance, man, Fire Staff is hitting hard right now, and it is very common in PvP, so I feel like this is a really good choice for this build as well. And then not a ton into slash and strike damage resistance. We are playing Rapier Ice Gauntlet. If somebody with a Great Axe or a Warhammer is mashing us up, that's pretty much our fault. So we don't need a ton of resist against these damage types. This build does really good against those opponents. And then, of course, in PvP, you're going to want to run the Infused Health plus the Regen Potion. Again, you can get away with 150 intel on this build as long as you're using the Regen Potion for that bit of mana that it gives. And for the other kind of defensive consumables, the Gemstone Dust is really nice. There's a lot of mages right now, so this comes in super handy. And you could also go for the Oak Flesh Bomb if you want. I do like having the Hearty Meal in my one slot here, but if you wanted, you could run both the Gemstone and the Oak Flesh Bomb and just use whichever is better for the situation that you're in. Alright, so let's take a look at the weapon mastery on this build. Starting off with the Ice Gauntlet. I've gone with the Ice Spike, the Ice Shower, and Entomb. Again, Entomb is a huge favorite of mine on the Ice Gauntlet for the insane amount of defensive utility that it provides, removing all your negative effects, giving you that little bit of a shield against incoming attacks and stuns when you use it, and of course healing when you exit out of it with the Healing Tomb. Yeah, really, really good all around. Ice Shower, of course, a very powerful AoE snare and immobilize when you drop it. This build does a really good job camping the Ice Shower. If you just keep running through it and forcing your opponents to follow you through it, it allows you to tank even an open field space against a lot of melee attackers. And a big thing about the Ice Shower, because it does apply that damage over time, it is a huge part of the additional damage that we get from the Ultimate Chill passive here. And then Ice Spike. I haven't used Ice Spike prior to this build in PvP, and I'm gonna be honest, I really like it. Not only can Ice Spike hit for quite a lot of damage if you manage to land that pretty tricky shot that it can do, but it's an AoE stagger, and it can stagger people not just once, but multiple times if you hit them with the combination attack. This is huge for PvP because you can use it to interrupt attacks even at a distance. You can use it to stop opponents from charging at you, and yeah, it just adds a lot of defensive utility to Ice Spike that I didn't really see in this skill before, and I really appreciate using it right now. Of course, the passives here, we've gone for Ultimate Chill. In order to do that, I had to put all of the passives almost in the Ice Tempest tree. The only one I don't have is 3 mana whenever you hit with 3 consecutive light attacks. You're not going to be doing that a ton on this build in PvP, but for the mana sustain, you do get 15 mana whenever you critically hit a target on this setup. That's pretty big because it allows you, again, to run less intelligence if you want to use the Ice Gauntlet more as a utility weapon rather than a damage weapon. And then, of course, Ultimate Chill itself, 25% increased ice damage against a target if you hit them with an Ice Gauntlet ability. Yeah, not only is this great for increasing our outgoing Ice Gauntlet damage, but again, we've got that Ice Gem on the Rapier, and this is why the Rapier can do so much damage on this build. Definitely a passive worth getting. And then in the builder tree, I've gone with Blocking Stamina. Blocking an attack with the Ice Gauntlet will convert mana to stamina, converting 3 mana to 15 stamina. This is actually a really good passive because it gives Ice Gauntlet a pretty decent block. That being said, block is not the best thing in PvP right now. I tried my best to make it work, but most of the time, rolling is a better option than blocking, especially if you're in light armor. So the Quick Frost passive would be the other choice for our first skill in the builder tree. And seeing as the only frosted area this build has is the Ice Shower, it doesn't really make a huge difference. Taking a look at the Rapier tree that I'm running here, I am running a very standard Grace tree. The Grace setup on a Rapier, my absolute favorite for PvP. Riposte, a huge part of the burst on this build, baiting people into that riposte, rolling behind them for that massive backstab, especially if we've recently hit them with an Ice Gauntlet skill. Yeah, this is not only a great defensive, but also offensive utility skill. Evade, again, really good offensive and defensively. We can use it to quickly step out of something like an additional dodge. It gives us stamina back, and on top of it, it can be used to deliver that really big burst damage too, if you want to use it offensively. And then Flesh, the gap closer of choice for the Rapier, lets you get behind someone, deliver those backstabs. Again, a really good pairing with the Rogue Rapier, and also having that really powerful defensive utility. The very important Momentum passive, a huge deal for a build like this, especially if you're going to use Evade on a Rapier. Momentum allows your light and heavy attacks to do a ton of damage, and it even ups your riposte heavy attack damage because you will have Momentum up after you riposte someone and then roll behind them for that heavy. The passives I like to pick for the Rapier are the Swiftness for the additional mobility, Red Curtains for the cooldown reduction when you land a crit. The Stamina recovery from controlled breathing is really nice because Rapier can deliver a lot of hits really quickly. And then, of course, the Refreshing Strikes for additional cooldown. And out of these 3 damage passives that you could pick for this kind of a build, I like to go with On Guard because I feel like more often than not, you get the better use out of this one. 40% or below stamina, you're not going to be attacking super often like that. And for Perfectionist, it's not super often that you're going to have full health if you're doing more of a melee style brawler setup in PvP, so I feel like out of all of these, On Guard is definitely the way to go. All right, let's get into that PvP commentary. Starting off with the first clip here. I'm in Outpost Rush. There are a lot of enemy players coming down the front here, and as you can see, I just kind of flex the durability of the Ice Gauntlet, using the Ice Shower to keep everybody immobilized, and then the Entomb to safely make it into this bit of terrain here, and then I right away start opening on this enemy Axe Hammer player, and catch him with a nice riposte. Unfortunately, don't get the damage I want, and these guys start going pretty aggressive on me. They're all chasing, so again, good placement of the Ice Shower, and I'm able to just kind of use it to control the battlefield. There's a huge backstab combo on that guy off the riposte, and I managed to tank out the incoming stun from the Warhammer player by using evade on the iframe there. And I just continue trying to put pressure into this other player with the bow. He has got not a lot of health left. There's a friendly player coming in with the Warhammer. I think he just closed out that kill there. And I'm just going to head back towards this very tanky enemy Warhammer player. I get caught with my pants down a little bit, trying to go for the Ice Shower as he goes for that big stun. So he does connect. And here he traps me in the gravity well, and I go for the flesh through it. This was really early on in my time playing this build. I definitely should have gone for the Entomb there, as it will remove the snare from the gravity well, but either way, I am able to survive it. Turn around, try to land that Ice Spike. A very good skill, even defensively, because of the range stagger that it can apply, and it's an AoE stagger on top of it, so it'll hit more than one person. And there I go again for the Ice Spike. He does have grid up, so he doesn't get staggered by it, and managed to catch a good riposte on him. There's a big backstab into the evade light attack. He throws down the gravity well, and I just flesh on top of him to keep up the pressure. But he manages to chug his potion there, and I go into the Ice Tomb, just kind of to predicting that he was going to attack me, but he ends up running back a little bit, and he turns around when another red player comes in here. I get a nice Ice Spike on him as I trap that guy in the shower, and I try to go for pressure here, and I just end up missing a lot of these attacks point blank. I think we could have got the kill on him there. Another spear player coming in here as well, and there's a friendly mage right behind me. He throws down his Ice Shower, and he ends up getting out of here as fast as he can, but we don't have to run away. This build, nice and tanky. There's a nice connection on the Ice Spike. I try to stay on top of him. He goes behind the friendly players to body block, but Flesh gets me right in there, and I get the finishing blow, and then a fantastic riposte on the other players as they're being very aggressive, and a really big backstab into that spear player, and he goes down as well. And then these guys start chasing right away, throw down the two Ice Showers, and just moving in and out of the Ice Shower like that, it forces the enemy players to either walk around it or go through it. And there you see I take a lot of pressure, catch that riposte, very quickly just evade out of there. And there's that defensive Ice Spike. Trying to land the stagger. Again, this was really early on, and I'll be honest, even after practicing, I am not good at landing the Ice Spike. But I still definitely have gotten some good use out of it, and I see what this skill is capable of. There you see again, I try to go for the Ice Spike, and I'm a little too late on it, so I don't manage to get the interrupt on that Axe player. And there is that Entomb, saving me big time when the gravity well comes down, the big crunch from all the players, and I'm able to just soak that damage up with the Entomb, very quickly purge, and then get out to safety. I land a nice Ice Spike on that archer there. Unfortunately, though, he kites behind the friendly players, and I'm having a hell of a time trying to get on top of him, but there's a great shower. I trap, I think, all three of the melee players in that shower, and now this NPC is very annoying in this kind of a fight. He's got a bunch of attacks that will stagger me, and I'm kind of forced to use the dodge to avoid that as well. And there again, a defensive riposte. I throw the Ice Spike down, and then I go into the Entomb, having blown my stamina here. I don't manage to get the potion in time, but that was so close to continuing on. Either way, I think a great display of not only the damage, but the durability and movement of this build. And yeah, moving on to the next fight here, still in OPR. This thing is such a good build to play in Outpost Rush, and hanging out inside the enemy outpost here. And I get up on top, very quickly put big damage into that Fire Mage and finish him off. There's a nice trap with the Ice Shower, big damage off the Ice Spike, and then a few pokes with the Rapier. That guy goes down as well. Lots of Glass Cannon archers around. Now, it's tough to fight ranged opponents on this build if you're out in the open. And I think this little fight here definitely highlights that. Here you can see I've got two bow spear players on me, and they're going to do a great job just kind of kiting me out and taking advantage of the fact that the bow has really good uptime on the movement speed. Either way, I'm doing my best to try to fight these guys. I do connect the Ice Spike there, but it's just the initial trail, so it doesn't do very nice damage. And I'm just getting chipped down by these guys slowly but surely. I have another potion coming up as well, so I get back behind the tree here. Still got that ghost on my tail. Go for another ice spike, a really big miss, and then I decide, all right, I'm definitely going to have to kill this ghost, otherwise I'm in a really dangerous spot, getting staggered by him, and then having the archers shoot at me. So I kill the ghost, and then I go back out to fight the archers, but my friendly players actually killing / scaring those guys off, and I head towards the enemy spawn. I absolutely love doing this in Outpost Rush. Just go to the enemy spawn, get some nice solo fights. I catch a great riposte on that player there. There's big damage off the backstab. I flesh back behind him again for more backstab damage. Rogue coming in so good on the Rapier, and I managed to finish off the Axe player with that. This guy does a good job trapping me in his Ice Shower combo, but I get a good roll, dodging the explosion from the grenades. He does connect with his blunderbuss at the end there, and there he lands the net shot as well. The snare is really brutal, but I do have the Ice Shower and the spike. I throw the spike down because I was expecting him to be a little closer. That was not the best placement of it, but I'm sure you guys will get used to my poor ice spike placement throughout the footage here. Either way, we've got a few more players on top of us here, and this guy's going for a lot of stuns with his sword and shield as well. I managed to roll back behind the terrain here, and then I go into the Entomb. Now, that might have seemed like a weird Entomb, but the big advantage of that was that Entomb will take all the negative effects off you. I had a bunch of dots and rend, etc. on me, so that was used kind of like a purge. Really good damage on this spear player here. Unfortunately, I end up missing the combos. He slides off the edge, but he stays on top of me, so I keep trying to go for pressure. I do land the Ice Shower, I believe, on him. He is pretty hard snared by that, and there's the connection from the Ice Spike. I think a friendly player actually landing the last shot to finish him off there before I could land that spike, but that was finally one that was well placed, and I think it was going to hit him nice and clean. Either way, I keep heading up towards the rest of the enemy players here. They are hanging out closer to the spawn. Now, again, this build, you don't want to fight ranged players in a big open area like that. So I do my best just to throw a bit of damage into these guys, but I really want to lure them onto the rock here. I'm not going to have any kind of real kill power unless they get close, and the first player ends up charging in here. He's got sword and board and spear. I'm expecting a nasty stun chain from this guy. He gets the interrupt and then jumps behind me and goes for the gap close to get a nice snare and damage on me, but I end up just kind of trading with him with the Rapier heavy attack. And this guy is definitely playing a glassy build. I put really good damage into him. He's not going to win that trade. He gets me with another stun there, goes for the leap in. This time I get the riposte, but he does a great job reading it, dodging the outgoing stun from the riposte, and he does manage to hit me with the attack from behind and evade into the flesh, saving me. And I just go for this tree because I see the ranged opponents kind of closing around me, and I want to have at least a tree to work with because you can use that to LOS really well. There you see the ranged player trying to shoot at me, and he ends up going around the other side of the tree as I go up to the top here. And I try to land the Ice Spike on the Sword and Shield player. He is very on my tail here. He's very aggressive. There's a flash through him into the backstab. He ends up dodging the backstab though, and this enemy player goes for the kick. I did go for the riposte. That would have landed had he actually landed that on me, but either way, we've got a friendly musket just kind of putting some pressure into these guys from way back there, and I go to the other side of the rock as this guy doesn't want to get hit by the musket. I get hit by his stun, but he goes for the next stun to follow it up with the spear. There's a 5.5k backstab on that guy. Insane amount of damage, and then one poke to finish him off. And the rest of the red around here start converging on me. I've got archers on and muskets on both sides here, but I'm doing my best just to stay offensive. There's a nice catch with the riposte on this guy. I go for the backstab, and there's a little bit of weird lag. It doesn't actually register that I hit that backstab, but his hit points did go down. And then the Ice Spike at the end to finish that guy off. And now it looks like just a couple more players here. One of them ended up running off, but more players respawning and coming back out here. This guy just eats the riposte right away. I go for the flesh on top of him. He chugs the potion, and that might have been the damage needed to kill him. Unfortunately, he did heal up in time. And I go back behind my bit of terrain here, being a little bit daring, I think, by going out into all that bow fire like that, but I am catching these guys a little off guard with the aggression of this build and how much damage it can do in those situations. I try to get on top of this bow player, but again, he just kites back, and we've got more red players pouring out of here. So I'm definitely going to need to take a little bit of a terrain advantage. Catch this guy with a nasty Ice Shower into the Ice Spike, taking about half his health out. And then I try to finish him with the Rapier here. Managed to land some good damage off that combo. Unfortunately, he just rolls away from the Ice Spike. and I've got a lot of red on my tail, so I'm forced into the entomb. And with that, I will let you guys enjoy the rest of this fight as I say goodbye. Again, if you want to check out a written guide to this build, you can find it on my website, pvpnewworld.com. You can catch me live on Twitch if you want to see that live gameplay, and give me a follow on Twitter if you guys want to keep up to date with me. And I feature the New World Top 5 battles. If you guys have an awesome fight that you want to see featured on the channel in a top 5, you can send that to Kristofer at pvpnewworld.com. This show is sponsored by What the Fast. It's a VPN for gamers. You can get better ping to your favorite games, free to try for the first month. There's a link down below. And of course, a massive thank you to all of my patrons on Patreon for supporting the show all this time. Thank you everybody just for tuning in and watching. I hope you guys like this build. And as always, have a great night, everybody. And I'll see you next time.